Hello, everyone. I'm Sam, he's Tim, and this is Code Remix Weekly, the first one of a new year where we will have new and old code to continue remixing. So, as is tradition in the new year, I made some resolutions, but I'm curious about your resolutions, Tim. If we were to speculate, it might be to speak at the most conferences ever, or maybe climb the highest mountain in the Netherlands, which I understand is a whopping several meters high.
I think we have like double the height of something like Denmark. I think so. That's something at least.
The
But
Netherlands, taller than Denmark. Like, is that on the signs when you enter the country?
yeah, it's like you gotta have someone to look down upon, and I think all the Baltics we can probably take as well. It's just I don't know, something to be done still.
Kevin's asking if your apartment building is the tallest mountain in the Netherlands. I
It
think
might
technically mountains are
very
supposed to
well.
be natural.
It might very well like be able to look out onto the tallest mountain. Yeah, there's just not a lot of features there around.
My parents live in Florida, and they love telling me about all the hills they climb when they have come to Seattle and encounter the hills we have here. And the biggest hills of note in Florida tend to be overpasses over roads. Like it's several dozen feet in
Yeah,
the air, a few
yeah,
meters, and that's all they got for elevation gain. It's kind of a swamp.
yeah. Quite literally, right? It's
But not the part in Miami where we're going to be doing the
yeah.
Code Remix Summit, right? Not it's hard for me not to say Code Remix Weekly, but the in person conference is not weekly. That would be a feat of logistics for sure.
Definitely, yeah. No, definitely looking forward to that one. So that's early May, and hope you all are able to join us. And,
Yeah, it'll be
no,
it'll be a good time for sure.
but as for New Year's resolutions, I want to be more active as always.
It's a good one.
It's just yeah,
Classic.
and yeah, and see if we hold it up. I think like the 14th or 17th, there's always the stage at which folks give up on their New Year's resolutions. So it's a nicely timed one to now tell folks that I want to do that, and then no.
And then yeah, I wanted to keep my New Year's resolutions very achievable, so I set getting married to my longtime partner as a New Year's resolution, and I did that on January 3rd. So like box checked, and I'm set. I've achieved what I set out to achieve for the new year,
Yeah,
and now from here on, it's all just extra credit. Any little bit of self improvement I do from here on, complete
no,
bonus.
that's good. Good to like. I mean, to peak in a year on the 3rd of January is maybe a bit early, but I don't know. At least good to have that one crossed off.
I like to set achieve, and I think of it done not as a peak maybe, but as a baseline.
But yeah, no, congratulations. Good
Thank
to
you, Tim. Thank you. So what do we have for announcements for the people this week?
We have a couple small ones. So, as always, we get pestered like, why haven't you covered yet my favorite language? And often that one is Python. And as you can see by the purple mark in the top left corner, we actually merged support for Python over the past 2 days ago. So expect more, of course, in that same region. But this is definitely the start of something new. And yeah, we hope that we get more folks enthusiastic about automations there. Maybe finally leap from 2 to 3 or do some other neat stuff there. So that's new. Also new is we featured this before, and the last time I did, it was reverted very quickly after. So I'm hoping this time around it'll be better. But I'm myself quite happy to see a Docker parser that you can now use to bump your container images as well as part of the upgrades that you're doing. So that's something that I'm looking forward to. Hopefully merged soon and kept that way.
Yeah, I thought the first version of that PR was fine, but I'll take another look at this one, and hopefully we can get that merged soon, and then we could make that a Code Remix Weekly episode.
Yeah, sure. No,
Yeah.
hadn't even thought of that one, but yeah, that could definitely feature. Then, And also good to know that if I have anything else that I want you to review, I can feature it here on the first 10 minutes.
Yes, that's a good way to bring it to my attention. Anything you feature at Code Remix Weekly, I will code review. Yeah, you
Keep
showed
this
me
in
how to
mind.
set up. You showed me how to set up the GitHub to ping me on Slack when a new PR change or something comes in, which is very helpful because I'm good at monitoring Slack and not good at monitoring anything else. But I haven't gotten any notifications yet, and I'm pretty sure it
Oh,
isn't
yeah.
because I haven't been tagged in anything. So I need to go figure out why that isn't working.
We're going to check that after the show. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, very good.
Because, good. Then just to round out the new language support, we also in the Modern CLI, for the folks using that one, we added support for COBOL. So if you were curious to try that out, then you are a user of Modern, then that is something you can try as well. So that's 3 new languages covered in just the space of a week. So I hope this appeases some of the folks that have been pitchforking us about adding new language support. And
Yeah,
then of course we have some
people have
others
been banging
lined
on
up.
my door screaming about COBOL support, all day and all night for years since we actually first implemented that. And so I will just mention, if you were one of those eager throngs of COBOL programmers, that the Modern CLI does not run on a ZOS mainframe. You need to have bridged your COBOL code to a Git repository, presumably one with
Ideally,
bidirectional
yeah.
sync. If you want any of the changes in the Git repository to make it back to your mainframe. So there's a couple prerequisites, but you COBOL guys out there know all about it, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. There is no sneaker net integrated into Modern, unfortunately.
That would be kind of fun, though.
It's maybe an April 1st kind of thing. And, we'll see. We'll see. Now, of course, for the folks slightly more up to date, they might be interested in joining our Spring Boot migration workshop. So that is coming up in next week, I think, the 21st. So a week from now today. So if you're interested in that one, then we can post a link in the comments. You can register, you can learn all the tools. You need to do that impact scan first, and then follow through with the recipes that we have. So that's something to register for. And then also new this week is that we put out a new Modern newsletter. So if you're interested in seeing sort of a recap of everything that's been new over the past week and month or so, then you can go through our newsletter here, and I'll set the link to LinkedIn where you can subscribe for future editions of that one as well. So that's everything that I have prepped for the things for this week in terms of updates. And then, of course, the topic for today that we have is leading into that best practices, the New Year's resolutions of helping clean out your code, helping remove old patterns, things like that. And with that, we each have some of the things that we want to run you through and show you. And on my end, I can start if you want, or
Go for it.
You're welcome to. Then I added a couple of quick recipes that I think could be helpful for folks, and we're calling out a few other ones that you might not be aware of. So with that, I'm going to share a different screen, if this will allow it. Yes, and then we find the right tab to show. It's always a challenge.
I mean, are you really a programmer if you have less than 40 tabs open?
I have, on my end, I have at this moment 5 different workspaces, each with at least 4 windows open. And within all of those, I have to find the correct one and not the incorrect one to share. So that's my challenge for today.
Yeah.
But we managed. So what I wanted to show you is a new recipe, because you can't have seen this one before, because I added it yesterday. And I immediately ran it across all the services that we have, and it produced some nice results. So what we have here is a new recipe to very narrowly scoped do replacements on the usage of var. So what we saw when I was writing some recipes for a certain Docker parser is that a lot of our tests were using a pattern where you can see right here, where you say, I want to have my element with a string s, and you're casting it from something else that might not be that string yet. And then what you actually want to be using is a var right there. And I figured this would be a good case to write a recipe for. And with some help from my Claude friend, I was able to very easily generate that recipe. And it's now been added to the catalog. So if you use the very latest snapshots of Rewrite Migrate Java, which right now would be 3.26.0, then you can get that recipe already. And then you can also see that I've already applied it to the Open Rewrite repository itself already. And that made changes across some 60 different files. So that's a quite neat bit of replacement here for all of these silly things where you have like source file, source file, source file, kind of feels a bit repetitive. And of course, this scrolls nicely all the way down to, now all of them see them left aligned on just the variables and then the type right after that. So should be familiar for folks who use Kotlin, where you have that more typically, or in your IDE get those replacements. So it's just a nice bit of, I think, approved usage so far, not a controversial usage so far, just to make your code a bit more readable. So if you're interested in that, definitely check out Rewrite Migrate Java, and then you can run this on your own code as well.
It even looks like more like Kotlin with var variable name and then the type name. It just happens to be in a cast on the right side of the equals rather than on the left.
Yeah, if you replace the equals with like a colon, it's definitely Kotlin style of using things. But I figured it's nice to like slightly get to see your implementations across different languages converge on similar patterns. And I think this was, to me, a nice improvement. And of course, we've immediately hooked this into the Open Rewrite recipe best practices, such that if you run that through the Maven or Gradle plugins on the recipe modules that you develop, then going forward, you will see this called out there. And you'll also see it on any pull requests that get opened going forward to now see this as a suggestion right there. So I thought that was pretty neat. And then, with that, I think a nice small improvements to clear out outdated patterns in your code. Now, I have a couple other things lined up still. I'm not sure if you want to jump in now or I can do the next one.
No, let's see what you got, Tim.
Yeah, sure. So we've, in the past, quite often recommended to run a recipe that we have, which is called Common Static Analysis Issues. So that is a collection of some 70 recipes that we know to work quite well. But that is not all the recipes that we have in that space. There's actually quite a few recipes that are not in that set of recipes that you can run. And we've started to group those onto a page of our Open Rewrite docs, where if you go to standalone recipes, it's a list of recipes from various recipe modules that are not included in any other larger set. That means if you're interested in the results of those recipes, then you need to seek them out and run them individually, or compose a composite that contains them. So all of these recipes, they are available to you, but we found that sometimes they're a bit more opinionated. As always, when we open a pull request, we don't want folks to turn it down based on one small change that they don't like. So we've not hooked these into larger composites, but there is value in exploring the recipes that are available here to see whether you maybe agree with the changes they would make, and then from there hook them into a larger composite for your usage. So with that, we have, like I said, quite a few recipes from that for the rewrite static analysis, to maybe use string equals the content equals, that you can see here, instead of calling the string that equals har sequence dot toString. So then, and that's just one example of things where it can be slightly more opinionated. As in this case, let's say you have to finalize local variables is a very opinionated recipe to use. But it's just maybe good for folks to scroll through this list once in a while to see whether there is anything in there that they think would be helpful for them to adopt as well. And then, of course, the rewrite static analysis is just one of the modules that has some recipes not included in the larger set. If you look on the right-hand side, you can see that nearly all of the modules that we have similarly have some recipes that are not hooked into a larger composite recipe for folks to use. So go explore that set if you're interested, and then from there, let us know how they hold up. And if you think this is a genuine improvement, it should be included in the default set, then that is, of course, also something we can do. It's a very trivial one-line change that's perfect for community contribution. Just make your case in a pull request, and we'll take it from there. So then, with that, that's another thing that I had lined up. I have more if you want, but
I guess I have a couple topics I could talk about, even if they aren't recipe runs to do right now. That now that I am thinking about it, several of the major work items I'm working on in Open Rewrite are about this kind of cleanup and an improvement that we've been talking about. And there are kind of two maybe major changes to Open Rewrite that are kind of that I'm working on that are kind of cooking at the moment. So we can give people here, our the our we can give people here kind of a preview of what I'm thinking or what we're thinking. And one of those things, and this is maybe not the most exciting thing to look at, but just a diff between an in project or an in progress branch I have and the main branch is we have this issue when composing declarative recipes where either intentionally or unintentionally we end up with multiple copies of the same declarative recipe loaded up, which leads to great inefficiency. Like if we go and look at the recipe builder, not this because this is tiny, but if we go and load up like migrate to Spring Boot 4. Let's see, this is the, like we look at the Open Rewrite version of this, after it thinks about it for a second, it will render the sum like 5,000 steps that are in here now as a big old jellyfish. And that's a lot of individual steps, but but it's manageable, right? They're fairly unique. But the migrate to Spring Boot 4. But if we use this, look at this other one, it will have over 10,000 steps. And some of that, or a lot of that, about half of it, is down to duplicating the other large composite recipe within its tree, just because there end up being, I have 11,000 steps here. And it is because this migrate to Spring Boot 4 includes like two versions of like the migrate to Spring Boot 3.5 basically, which include each other. Um, and so we end up with a lot of unnecessary steps in here that slow down this recipe and obviously slow down UI built around it, like the recipe builder, and generally make it less useful. So I don't think there's ever actually a cause for duplicating the same declarative recipe twice within a single recipe hierarchy. And I am working on adjusting the YAML recipe loader and the declarative recipe class to prevent that. And I don't mean like throwing an error. I mean, if you try to load two copies of the same declarative recipe into, another declarative recipe, it just won't load the second one, so that this should show only a few dozen steps more than the other one, not many multiples of it. I think this will be a big win for recipe performance and a big win for people who are starting off with Open Rewrite. As one of the very common things we see when we bring Open Rewrite into a new organization is that they put like, well, I want the Spring Boot migration, and I know I need to upgrade Java for that, so I'm going to put that with the Java migration, not knowing that the Java migration is already included in the Spring Boot migration. So then people are like, well, why is this slower than it should be? And it's like, well, it just asked it to do a lot of the same work twice. And so this is something I'm cooking on that hopefully won't regress anything major. It's kind of a big change, and it's one of those changes that I'm hoping will be like completely unnoticed if I do it right.
And, and we're gonna ask all our viewers to chime in now if you expect any issues. But
Yes, so
otherwise, you had your chance.
yes, absolutely. We're counting on you, the people watching this, to be the Open Rewrite power users and fans out there who will, if you have some scenario where you're like, oh, I do intentionally use this declarative recipe multiple times within another declarative recipe, speak now or forever hold your bug reports. I mean, I know that won't actually work. I'll get the bug reports anyway, but I would like it if you spoke now about it.
So just to give some context, maybe for folks, like the way this happens quite often is that, say that you have a Spring Boot upgrade, and then various versions of Spring Boot would need various versions of Spring Framework, but the Spring Framework upgrades each would also call back to the previous Spring Framework upgrades. So then you get like two ladders going up, and each of them point back down to the corresponding Spring Framework version, and the corresponding Spring Framework will do the same for Jakarta version upgrades, and the Java upgrades are also similarly tied in a couple different ways there. And before you know it, you get this huge blob of somewhat duplicated logic recipes. So.
Yeah, or my browser struggling to deal with this visualization. There's so many nodes.
I'm glad that you're the one demoing at this point. Yeah, my browser doesn't hold up. I know that. And then I have to re-find my 40 tabs I had open earlier. And,
yeah, so that's the first thing I have to demo. Maybe we'll switch back to you, Tim, and then we can and then I'll have one more
Yeah, sure.
kind of thematically related thing to show the people.
Yeah, sure. So this one is one that goes out to the recipe authors, potentially listening here. Yeah, we sort of by chance stumbled upon a pattern where we figured we could yet again make the way that you define a recipe shorter by writing a small recipe that does a bit of replacement. So I'll show you an example of how I've changed so far 282 files in Open Rewrite Rewrite. But we figured out, well, if you're using Lombok, there really is no need for you to override that display name method or that the get description method, when you can just as easily have a final string display name right here, which relies on you using the value annotation.
Can you make this text a smidge bigger, Tim? I'm finding this hard to read.
Yeah, sure.
There we go. Much better. Thank you.
Oh, no, there was a small delay.
Maybe too big. Hard to find that sweet spot.
It's still scrolling. I'm not doing anything.
I see why you were happy it was my browser sharing earlier.
Yeah,
yours doesn't seem to want to listen to your instructions.
Yeah, there's like a delayed feedback here. But like I said, you have a value annotation from Lombok, and that means that if you define a string field with an immediate value, you get this getter generated for you. So this has now been a way that we figured out, well, if you use string display name and then immediate value and a string description with immediate value, that is enough for you to generate those overrides that you need just to get you a little less boilerplate on all of your recipes. And if you start to apply that everywhere, then this suddenly starts to look a lot like the way that we now define our recipes in JavaScript and TypeScript. So again, looking for that convergence, similar patterns across different languages to get that same thing going. So the way I've, again, done this is with a recipe, of course, for the shorter, simpler, more in line with the JavaScript, TypeScript implementations. And again, this one is now part of the best practices that we have for you to run on Open Rewrite recipes. So if you run the Open Rewrite recipe best practices, then this one now also does that. And you can see here, I developed this recipe and I forgot to do these replacements on the recipe itself. It's like, but of course, subsequently the platform to roll this out, and now all of our thousands of recipes have been updated in this way.
And that's the nice thing about encoding a best practice into a recipe. It doesn't matter if you forget, since you could just fix it at any time.
Yeah, and it's also, we're immediately consistent on the same day. Like within half an hour, all of our services were updated, and we don't have this issue anymore. And then half a day later, like brushing my teeth, I realized there's more we can do. So there's a small case I wasn't covering where if you don't use that value annotation, I didn't want to make an incorrect assumption. So now I have, let's say, this one. I don't have the right tab open, I think. So I made a small change. Let's scroll to the test just to show it. Where if you don't use that value annotation, you can still get the benefit by using that @getter final string. And now that meant that I could replace another couple of hundred string methods with string fields, and all of that is now cleared out and consistent across all of our repositories.
This also makes these Java recipes look a little bit more like their Kotlin.
It is a very nice reduction of the verbosity that folks often throw around for as a drawback of Java, but it's getting better and better. Yeah. Now, we do have some more recipes in this space as well. So if you're interested in recipes that we have, I can call those up here in the marketplace that we have. Let me zoom proactively a bit. And then we have some recipes. If you search for Lombok best practices, this is again a very opinionated recipe, because some folks would say the best practice is not to use Lombok. But if you do use Lombok, then you have you can do these conversions of similar getters to methods on annotations and things like that, to annotate your fields instead of having those methods. And a couple of the other ones where we just further the adoption of Lombok. Other way around, if you want to go from value to records. Oh, why was I signed out halfway through? So if you want to go from value to record, then we also have a recipe to help you there, to convert Lombok value classes into records for the lucky few who are already writing their recipes on Java 17 or 21 or 25. Not us, we're stuck on Java 8 until all of you are on Java 17. So this recipe could be another way for you to further reduce the code that you have and clean it up and make it feel more modern, even if you're still on an older one.
I wonder if there will ever come a day that we like delete the Java 8 to 11 migration because every repository in the world's on Java 11 and there's just no need for it anymore.
I really strongly wonder if that's ever going to happen.
I mean, probably there's always going to be that one repository, you know, that we're like, well, it's still technically out there, so we should keep the recipe just in case that project that's been on hiatus for 40 years wants to get on Java, Java 36 or whatever.
I think it's more likely we'll start to do some very nasty hacks to, I don't know, build the LST on Java 8, but write your recipes in 25 or newer. But I don't know.
Yes. Well, I mean, there are a couple things we could do. Like we do have a bytecode transformation in one of the build plugins for open, not like the open source build plugin you run recipes with, but the build plugins we use in on open rewrite projects that will go change the declared class file compatibility version of a class file to say, oh yeah, this was totally compiled to target Java 8, specifically so we can use multi-line strings in some tests that we need to run on a Java 8 JVM for to maintain the Java 8 parser TCK compatibility kit. So we could do more, like that var keyword thing. Like you could use, like that still compiles to bytecode that says the full type name, right? That a Java 8 compiler or a runtime could easily run that, except for the version number. So we could potentially throw something like that in there.
It is a lot of newer features are actually just syntactic sugar around,
yes.
Like just compiling back down to the original bytecode. And I think we could, I don't know, do some more of that in the recipes we write. But of course, the things you really want, like sealed interfaces and sealed classes and things like that, that's just not going to happen.
The bytecode is actually meaningfully different. Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh well. But yeah, there is a lot of recipes like this one that are just not hooked in anywhere else. So explore the catalog that we have, and then from there you can apply more of these fixes. And then similarly, we also have this one from our friends at a Dutch supermarket picnic. I don't do my groceries; they just come to the door, and they also help me with recipes. So they've a large set of recipes, which they keep expanding as well, and we keep adopting the recipes that they have. Recently, adding some for Jackson 2 and Jackson 3, and these you can also run on your own services and see what kind of improvements they would do. So we've neatly clustered them together in a new composite recipe, and this should then make a lot of these opinionated cleanups that you can do just to standardize things a bit more. So let's see if we can get some small examples here. In this case, doing the get element at index 0 to get first. That one we also have at Open Rewrite, but it is a nice type of improvement that you can be doing. So be sure to explore that as well as something you could be doing with recipes.
Yeah.
So that's the things I wanted to show on my end. I'm not sure if you have more.
Yeah, I have maybe one more thing to talk about, and that is that I'll click the. Oh, we got it. Okay. we got there in the end. I'm not sure what that layout was where the screen share was tiny and my face was big. I don't know when that would ever be practical, but it's good to have the option, I suppose. But anyway, so one thing that is coming or maybe is already happened to some extent is that the concept of cycles in open rewrite is going away, and this may or may not be something you've ever thought about, but when you are on the SaaS and you run a recipe, it will run through all the recipes in the list, and then it will start again at the beginning of the list and run through them again in a second cycle. And this gives recipes, earlier in the list a chance to respond to changes made by recipes later in the list. And it's also terrible for performance, right? Because if you're running most of the time, 99% of recipes get all of their work done in a single cycle and don't particularly have anything to respond to from changes other recipes make. So it's kind of like traversing the list twice when once would almost always be enough. And particularly when you get into large composites, whether or not they have big duplicate subtrees, that's inefficient, right? And it certainly magnifies the inefficiency of having duplicate subtrees, although those are separate issues. Uh, and so the CLI already only runs things for a single cycle. And soon enough, the SaaS is going to be using the CLI as its recipe runner. And then when the SaaS and the CLI are only running for a single cycle, probably the concept of cycles disappears from the open rewrite code base everywhere except perhaps rewrite test. And because it'll still be useful to show that a recipe is
Hmm.
stable and indeed does do all of its work in a single cycle, to have the test framework run things twice and say, hey, nothing changed the second time I ran this. So that change is kind of already here because the CLI does a single cycle and is going to be everywhere as that continues to propagate through the other ways of running recipes. So there's one big sign that you could use to check your recipes to make sure that they are as well right now as performant as possible and as correct as possible, and that is to look for anywhere in your recipe tests that expected cycles that make changes is two, or kind of declared at all is a bit suspicious, right? So I'm
Yeah.
going to be going through all of our recipes, trying to get rid, and hopefully I won't be alone in this, go through all of our recipes and try to make sure that they all get all of their work done in a single cycle. So if you are maintaining some custom recipe modules, particularly if you're running them through the CLI and you're like, why are the results am I getting like not exactly matching the unit tests I wrote? Well, if you have expected cycles that makes changes in there, that might be why.
Hmm.
So that is, if you were looking for a New Year's resolution and you maintain an open rewrite recipe module, that's a good potential resolution I offer you, is to get rid of any of the expected cycles that made changes, reconfigurations in your unit tests. Your recipe will be more correct, and soon it will be more performant as well.
That's a very good one as well. And I imagine this is one where we can already deprecate these methods and push that out in the next release. And
Yeah.
then in a subsequent one, maybe add a recipe to remove the given a certain value, and
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
eventually just remove it at all. And then, yeah.
I do. I might imagine that like all of our test verifications where we have the test framework and force some best practice, we always allow an opt out, right? Like you want to write a recipe that produces invalid types, fine. You want to write a recipe that takes multiple cycles, even though in practice you're only going to get one, maybe that's fine as well. So I'm not sure if these methods totally go away, but they might be changed into like the way you opt out of these other test validations is like you what they like called type validations for historical reasons, but maybe it gets merged into that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Maybe we deprecate
That's
these methods. Maybe we keep them in some capacity. But either way, we should signal to people that this is not not something you want to be doing. This is a sign your recipe is incorrect.
yeah. And of course, there's another form of an escape hatch in the repeat dot cycle. I think
Yeah, yeah, there
there's
is.
a
I actually personally tried to get rid of cycles almost 2 years ago to the day, and at that time it got reverted because it caused problems. But I think we're in a better state now, or I hope so, since cycles are already partially gone. But yeah, I had it was is it called just repeat?
I think the class is called repeat. Yeah.
Yeah. So this utility has been in there since 2 years ago when I first, tried to do this. Um, but there is this way that inside of a recipe, if you're like, oh, I want to repeat this visitor until it stops making changes or until some maximum number of cycles have been reached, this is a utility that you can use right now. And you could imagine where this might come in with like Boolean simplification, right? Like if you've got a complex Boolean expression and you had separate visitors for making different kinds of simplifications, that you might run several of those more or less in a loop until none of them made changes anymore. As you're rearranging Boolean algebra, you could easily be in a situation where those recipes would want to respond to the changes the other had made, and you could use a method like these repeat until stable methods in order to deliberately have a cycle internal to your recipe that would stabilize those outputs. So good utility.
Gives you a slightly better feeling than just adding the cycles only in the tests and then knowing that in practice it won't work.
Right. This will work, and then you won't have to have the cycles in your test. Yeah. So I imagine that as we go through the list of recipes and clean up their cyclic behavior, that the repeat utility may be part of that.
I can see that being used maybe initially until like a smarter idea comes around. So,
yeah, I mean, ideally for most things, you could always write a recipe that was smarter than this. That would be not just keep trying until it doesn't make changes anymore, but I think realistically plenty of times this is going to be good enough. And it's a huge win to go from repeat all 1,000 recipes in the list several times to the 3 recipes in the list that are I need to repeat a few times to just doing it there. Like that's way better.
And it's also the repeat works on the visitor, whereas the other one was on the complete list of recipes, right? So it's
Correct.
starting again from the all the way at the front. So
correct, exactly.
So yeah, curious to see how what we've learned in the past 2 years and how this holds up. So should be interesting.
Well, Hopefully it goes better this time.
So yeah. Something to look forward to in the next release notes, and then it should be good.
Yeah, well, I think that's all we really have to share today. But feel free to share your New Year's code cleanup resolutions with us. And attending the Code Remix Summit in Miami could be a great New Year's resolution that is very achievable. You can go and register for that right now, and we will see you in May. Have we announced the exact dates that it is in May? Is that? I should probably know, right?
I think it's May 12th to 14th, or it was
sounds right.
last year. Yeah,
well, that's definitely what it was. Okay, so we're saying the website right now says May 11th through 13th. So you were very close.
So that's off by 1 day. So that's fine for someone flying internationally. That's okay.
Yeah. You were just 1 index, and this was a 0 index date. Yeah.
To me, it already feels like the 12th.
Exactly. So yeah, good news resolution to clean up the cycles in your recipes and to join us at Code Remix Summit in Miami in May.
And until then, you can join us next week, where we'll have Brian on to talk about smarter code search. So we hope to see you all again then. And with that, see you all next week.
See you next week. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.